So I decided to go live because I got a request to make a video about my favorite top 10 or top 5 books. And I thought that's kind of a huge topic. So I decided to make a live stream about that. This is the first time I'm using my camera here. So I'm not sure how that works. Last time I used my webcam, it didn't really work, I noticed, but uh, this should be better. So let me know in the comments if you can hear me well. So when I got the question or the request to make a video about my favorite books, I wasn't sure how to go about doing that because, okay, great, thanks. Depends on what you mean, like the best books in terms of content or the best books for me. So I decided to do my favorite books that I would take to a desert island, the books that I could use for the rest of my life. And I'm also going to share the last book is going to be my absolute favorite book, the best book I've ever seen. But let's start with these are all books that I've covered in my lessons, by the way. The first one is the Barry Harris book, and after the live stream, I'll put links to all these books where you can find them. So this is the Barry Harris Harmonic Method for Guitar, which I have covered many times. And we all know the Barry Harris stuff, right? Most people are aware of this. But there's so much you can do with that. And I have made so many lessons about that. You can play it on the bottom strings. You can omit or drop a string. And there's so many systems. You can double notes. And I wish I'd known all this stuff earlier. It would have helped me a lot. So it's by this guy, Alan Kingston, who is, I think, or he was a student of Barry Harris. I'm pretty sure. So that's number 5. That you could bring any page in this book. You could use for the rest of your life. Maybe not any page, but the book you could use for the rest of your life, for sure. Then we have these books by Randy Vincent that I also discovered recently. I wish I'd seen them years ago. Really, really good. I'm pretty sure Randy Vincent was a teacher at one of those prestigious colleges in the US. And I think he had some really prominent students. So this is the 3-note voicings and beyond. This is another book where you can take any page and work on it for a whole day or a week sometimes. And you can always come back to it. So it talks about so much stuff to just give you an idea here of what it looks like. That's a lot of stuff. So that would be another book I would bring. So I'm not taking these books in any specific order. I'm just kind of going randomly here. The other book by Randy Vincent, I think I have all these books. All right, actually, there's one more that I don't have, I think. This is Line Games, which I've also covered in previous lessons. Again, so much stuff to work on. And any page you can spend a day, like he goes over different ways to play bob scales, different ways to play lines in so many different ideas, some of which I have never seen before. So it was totally new to me. Let me know, by the way, if you have any questions about any of these books. The best books I think I have seen actually are Jerry Bergonzi's books. I think there's 7. And the most famous is probably this one called Pentatonics. I have all of them except the last book. I think it's volume 7. I don't have that one. And then there's one which is really weird. Volume 6, I think, the one called Thesaurus of Scales and Patterns or something like that. Thesaurus of Intervallic patterns. That's a weird one. So that's the kind of book you get if you have practiced everything else imaginable and you don't know what to do next. So I wouldn't get that. But this one, called Melodic Rhythms, I thought I lost it, but it was just hiding between some other books. I have so many books. And this one is probably the book that has changed my playing the most. So two things happened. My rhythmic vocabulary when I'm improvising is improved by this book. And also, when I listen to other players, I hear when they do this stuff. So, like cross rhythms. I've also talked about this in a previous video called Cross Rhythms, I think. And so, playing over the bar line, like different groupings of notes over the bar line. And that takes quite a getting used to. It's a little bit tricky to do that over a fast jazz standard. So you have to kind of slow things down and work on it. And that was very challenging when I started doing it. So yeah, it's really, I'm guessing there are a lot of drum books like this, but I've never seen a jazz method book. So this is not guitar specific. By the way, I should mention that this is a saxophone player, so there's no guitar instructions or anything. I'm pretty good. Thanks, Drew. I hope you're good as well. And I should also mention that these Randy Vincent books don't have tabs. They have fingerings, however, so good guitar fingerings, which is better, in my opinion, than tabs, because tabs doesn't really give you the fingerings. It just tells you what fret to play, but notation gives you the fingering. But the chord book, 3-Note Voicings, has chord diagrams as well as notation. And the Barry Harris books as well. There is no tabs in any of these books I'm covering today, because I often get that question. The only time I think tabs are good is when you're playing different tunings. Then it's absolutely necessary to use those. Okay, those are 4 books. Now, here's the best book that I have ever seen in terms of how unique it is and how unbelievably advanced and comprehensive the content. So Miles Okazaki is a guitar player, and he's a pretty serious guy. And this book, Fundamentals of Guitar, is just, it's hard to explain if you haven't seen it. It's just so much information in here. Anything from like Indian rhythms to incredibly difficult rhythmic concepts, polyrhythms. The best information I've seen on polyrhythm by far. So here's how explained. And then you turn it upside down, and you get the other perspective. And then on the next page, how you notate it from different perspectives. Because you can notate any polyrhythm from both of the rhythms. You know what I mean? So if you're curious about that, I've never seen any better source of information for that. And then all these kind of mathematical ideas about triads and stuff. So any page in this book could be a YouTube lesson for me, but I don't want to do that because that would be kind of like taking credit for Miles Okazaki's work. But just to give you an idea, I have made videos about this book, and Miles also has his own YouTube channel. I think he hasn't uploaded anything in years, but you can find some of his stuff online. And just to give you an idea of how ridiculous this book is, he talks about primes, rhythmic primes. So a prime is like, if you imagine you group quarter notes and eighth notes, and a quarter note is 2 eighth notes, right? So 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and the eighth note is just 1. If you take a rhythm like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You get an Afro-Cuban 6/8 clave. right? And you can feel that two ways. You can feel it as 6/4 or as 1, 2, 3, 4, bum bum ba bum 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 bum. Right? So he explains that how you can feel those primes as both triplets or quarter notes and eighth notes, and how that works. And then this rhythm that I'm just clapping is 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1. That's 2 2 1 2 2 2 1. 2 2 1 2 2 2 1. That's the same thing as a major scale, right? It's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So that's also 2 2 1 2 2 2 1. So the most common scale has the same mathematical sequence as the most common rhythm. And if you combine the eighth note with the following quarter note, you get five note rhythm, which also corresponds to the pentatonic scale. So that clave is also very common. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I do explain this also in my video called The Clave, I think the video is called. And that means that you can take all the modes of the major scale and make rhythms, or primes as he calls them, which I was completely blown away when I found this out. I've never heard anybody else talk about this. That the most common clave has the same mathematical number or sequence as the major scale. So I know for some of you it might sound confusing, but if you was intrigued by that, all you have to do is get this book. And this book is fairly new, so it's probably pretty easy to find, and it's fairly inexpensive. So it's Melodic Publishing. After I publish this live stream, I'll go in and I'll put links to all these videos, links to all these books. So I think they are still in print, so you can find them. So that was just my 5 favorite books that I would bring to Desert Island. And because I know that any of these books I just mentioned, I could spend the rest of my life working on them. So let me know if you have any questions about that, or I will call it a day. So I guess this camera worked for live streaming. That's good to know that I'll use that in the future. Mick Goodrick almanacs are available now on. Really? Oh, like you mean like PDFs? I do have all Mick Goodrick's books as PDFs. I have the first almanac of voice leading as an actual book, but the following 2 books I have as PDFs. It took me a very long time to find them, but okay, so that's good. That's good to know. For those of you who are looking for the Mick Goodrick's, those books are also obviously books you could spend your rest life working on, but they're very specific, right? It's just like one thing you're working on. Voice leading, basically. Any specific theory books that you like? Yeah, the what's it called? The Bert Ligon theory resources, is that what it's called? The Bert Ligon theory books are good. They're not for jazz. And then that Mark Levine, is that the theory book? Is very, very good. It's a little bit pricey, and I think the reason that it's expensive is because they're actual examples of all the musical examples he's explaining, so that I guess they have to pay copyrights. But that's also very, very good, because that he's explaining a theoretical idea, and then he's showing you, like in this Miles Davis tune or recording, for example, they actually use this, which is really inspiring. So I think it's called the Mark Levine Theory Book. I hope I'm saying that name. It's one of the most like comprehensive theory books for jazz. And yeah. All right. So with that, I'll end this stream here. And thank you for joining me. And shall see you later.